Yeah.
And so the last meeting,
Okay, I'll send you this.
so we're the city meeting. Yeah. So we're on the heels of that. So
I cannot find them. Again, I cannot find them. I pull it up again, I get all my church stuff, so I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah. We just can't shut this up.
yeah,
What that is, oh, I know what it is.
Okay, I should have sent you that in Marie.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
They got you your whole bar in case you get hungry. Right here, you're crunching down there. Well, no, you didn't have your.
I didn't, there's no other one.
Okay,
That's
so.
where I am there.
So you need to go again, probably. Into the North Logan City.
Okay.
You're not in the same drive.
I didn't turn off my phone right now. Check things off. Get out of here.
It came up. What if somebody's written? This one, we're all the way up to 2017 now in our minutes.
So, was it?
So
And have it.
now I'm in
There's four of us.
It's been a while. Proper leadership.
Yeah, yeah, we were getting off the rails.
Yeah.
I bet you were.
I was worried about it, but I'm not worried enough to come back.
Those are going to trip.
I think we're good to
Ready?
go when you're ready. Yep.
All right. Welcome to Planning and Commission meeting. Everybody's here. We're missing Kenny, who's in New York. But other than that, and Heather, we heard that you got to introduce yourself last time, so
Twice.
welcome. We won't make you introduce again twice. Right. Okay, we will have a pledge of allegiance by Dwight. Is that right? And Heron will say prayer.
Citizens, please join me in the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Father in heaven, and we meet this night as Planning and Zoning Commission for the North Logan City. And grateful to be here, grateful for this opportunity to serve the citizens of North Logan City. And grateful for those who have come to take part in this meeting. We ask that thy Spirit will be with us to guide us during this meeting. And the things we need to have action on, we can discuss and move forward as a city. May we do that for pleasing, we pray in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Dwight and Heron. Do we have move to adopt the agenda? Anybody?
Here, Dwight, I move that we adopt the agenda.
And a second? Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we adopt the agenda. Dwight. Okay, Marie, we don't have minutes, right? Okay, next meeting, we'll do minutes. All right, Spencer, how about follow-up issues from the last meeting?
Yes,
Anything?
so one follow-up or a couple things to follow up on from the last meeting. The one subdivision up Orchard View Estates, it's been known as Horse Pasture, Maloof subdivisions, had a couple names. That one went to city council in development plan and was approved by the city council. The other subdivision, the concept, it's the Yonker subdivision. I can't remember the name. Beck Farms subdivision concept plan that was reviewed last meeting is waiting for another date when the applicants can be there for the meeting. So that one wasn't on the agenda this time. Those were the two that got followed up on or that were in city council.
That was it.
Yes.
Thank you. Right, let's go to item number 1, consideration and possible recommendation of the development plan for Smiling H subdivision.
Okay.
Spencer?
Yes, so this was considered last week as well. I'll give a little bit of an overview. We've talked about this subdivision many times, kind of at length. We're at the development plan application, but I'll give an idea of the basics. So it spans 40 acres. It crosses both sides of 2500 North. I'm kind of outlining the extents here. Development plans and preliminary plat was submitted just before the last meeting. Since that time, we've met with the applicant along with city staff, our city engineer, and others to discuss the plat. It had a list of revisions. They've gone back to the drawing board as well, and well, not back to the drawing board. They've made a lot of those minor changes to kind of come more in line with what we're with our requirements. We've had time to review it as well. A couple of the highlights that we've got on this plan and the things that we wanted to kind of follow up on. The sewer line has a couple different options. So there are still a couple little things that we're working through, but that's typical. Typically there are details like depths of exact depths of water meters, exact depths of sewer line that get ironed out by the construction document phase. But for this submission, development plan, preliminary plat, they've submitted everything they need. That includes water model with the fire flows that was shown to have enough capacity, and that's been reviewed. They've got a draft development agreement. They've got their all of their soil studies and other studies as well. So that's kind of the basics on this one. I'll flip back over to the development plan so I can take any questions regarding this subdivision.
Okay. Ready?
Mhm.
Go through the development plan. Let's do it.
For which?
You're going to go through the plan with us now?
Oh, sorry, I just pulled it back up. So I kind of went through the highlights of what, there are a lot of other details that have been worked through and been a lot of back and forth between the two parties, but yeah, that was kind of the highlights of it between staff. Staff does recommend a positive recommendation to this one, just with the condition that we continue to iron things out as we get through the construction document phase.
Spencer, it seems like the one of our major concerns last time was the secondary water issues and an agreement, a written agreement.
Yes.
And where are we on that?
Yes, so that's correct. And I wasn't here last time, so sorry for not being right up to speed, but the secondary water system has been thought through, utilizing some of the existing lines, having a new head gate and easement coming through, new head gate from the canal, easement to get the pipe to this area. One thing that we're continuing to work with them on, so we've reviewed the irrigation plan. We also want to have the applicant reach out to the pipe company the irrigation company that they were previously on. Some of the pipes being reused or removed, just to triple check that it's not going to impact any of their system. From our review, and it's not, they've told me they've reached out as well, just today. That's something we'll want to make sure it's got the final thumbs up from them. It's not going to impact that other system in any way, and make sure it's going to be able to service this. But they do have the agreements in place that they need as far as easements and head gate.
Okay. Other questions?
One question that I had, so there's a corner lot between lot 59 and 60. And in the, yeah, right there, lot and or retention pond. So which is it? Is it a buildable lot?
Yeah, I think that's got to be a detention pond, but maybe Matt or Brent can speak to that. Is that going to be a stormwater detention pond, Ben?
It's quite small. Yeah,
Maybe we could relabel
So
that
it's,
just to say.
it's not a
detention basin.
buildable lot.
yeah, we can't. So we need to put,
Oh. Yeah. Okay. Perfect, but it's not its own building lot. Okay.
okay. So it will say that next time, so it doesn't say lot and or, okay. Okay,
Question, is that a depression that's going to be a pond-like thing rather than a flat? Okay.
and so we're working, you've got the information from the irrigation company that you need. Irrigation company, right?
As far
With
as their
this-
secondary system, so they're creating a new line. So that's kind of what we need. The only thing that we would want to check up on before city council approval is just get a verification thumbs up from the previous irrigation company to verify that it's not going to impact their system. But that could be a condition of city council approval, I think, very easily. From our review, all the lots on the existing line company that they're not using are still able to be serviced, but we just want that line company to look at it as well. Just another set of eyes.
So can we have a condition that we have a written statement from that the irrigation company that it's a go?
Yeah, absolutely.
Spencer, you mentioned something about the lines, the water lines. Is there an issue with perhaps they're old and crumbling, or is it just a use factor?
I think it's more of a location. So if we're talking are we talking secondary
Mhm,
lines?
mhm.
So some secondary lines just are routed currently in a place that we go right through new lots, right through the middle, where they'd want to be built. So in those cases, they'll remove the line in some places. They'll also repurpose some lines, say going under 2500 North, I think is the only one that they'll be able to tie into. That way they won't have to cut across 2500 North. They can utilize the existing. So I think it's less of a factor of things crumbling infrastructure wise and more of a factor of for location's sake. They'll probably remove some sections of that.
Sure.
So I'm Ben Johnston, the engineer, and
Get
we,
closer.
A little closer to your mic, please. Thanks.
there we go. We tried to use the existing irrigation system and tap into that. But for a number of reasons, we couldn't do a water study on it. We didn't know the size of the lines. We didn't know, there was a lot of variables, plus we didn't have the correct shares. There was a half a share you had to turn over for each lot. So we've made an agreement and we're going to create our own water company and tap in with a new line. We've got a written easement from the Stevens to come down through there. That's been agreed upon. So we'll be disconnected from that entire system and we'll route the existing system. So all the existing users off of the old line will still be, have their same use. So we won't limit any of that and we won't interrupt any of their system or their irrigation uses. And there will be a water, we'll have a company also part of the homeowners association. There'll be a company where they'll pay into their fees. Each lot has to be metered off of the canal with the secondary irrigation, as you guys know, with the new rules. And so I think we remedied the situation, alleviated some of the use off the old system and put it all into our own system.
Thank you.
Oh.
Hmm,
Mhm.
Yeah.
If you want to come over to the mic, you better, with that issue, you better let the public hear that. We're tuning in.
Matthew Bishop, Little Capital. So the consumption of water for alfalfa, if you pull up the state regulations on there, they've taken, years of historic use. Is I think for the entire property is about 106 acres, water acres with we're a third effectively of what it is for under alfalfa. So because we're under the classification of lawn and a portion of that'll be garden, we're actually probably going to limit even a certain percentage on our CCNRs for the development. Only a certain percent of it could be lawn. They have to do other type of landscaping. Just again, to be conscious of water consumption, because I understand it, all throughout the state we have problems. I live down in the Pine View Reservoir, and I just look at that and it breaks my heart because there's literally almost no water in it now, and it's not even summer yet. So we're going to do everything we can to minimize the impact on water consumption for a secondary system. But we do also have last week we had board approval from the Cache Highline Company to tap into their system.
Good.
Any other questions on water?
Any water questions, guys? Okay, and
Oh, do you have-
I apologize. Every time we talk about Smiling H, I've missed the meeting. And so I just have a question. Are you doing this in phase 1, phase 2? Where are you building first? What side of 2,500, or is it all happening at once?
So my plan originally was to do 100% of it. But because we don't have the northern side on the sewer worked out, I have a feeling that the canal is going to get charged before we can go across, because right now the sewer has to cross the canal. If you could. Thanks, Spencer. This whole section is a canal.
Mhm.
So I don't think we're going to be able to cross that before May 15th or whenever they charge it. And so because of that, we're going to start on the southern portion of 2,500 first.
Okay.
And the canal here, this is the Stevens property.
Mhm.
So they've given us the rights, and the high line is kind of out here. And so we'll tap in and come down across, and you can see the blue line. And we need to cross 800 for not only water, but for electricity as well.
So I know there's been some concern and some questions about on 600 East sidewalks. Is that something to address now or later?
Yeah, I can give a little bit of an overview there. So the sidewalks are shown on the plan for the extents of the subdivision. So as far as the development is concerned, you can see, I'll zoom in. They've got them drawn in standard sidewalks. Anything outside of that extent is either responsibility of another development, which we've got another one in concept here, or later on the agenda tonight, or the city coming in and improving the rest of it. So it's kind of outside the scope of this subdivision, but could be a good discussion city-wise as far as getting the sidewalk improved down the rest of this road, which would help obviously with kids getting to school and safe routes to school and things like that. That's something we'll have to answer as a city. And look into the budget to get. We have a lot of items that are pressing, our water infrastructure, things like that. But obviously it's a pretty big priority. It would be very beneficial to have that sidewalk go all the way down to 22.
But both developments have to do their share of the sidewalk.
Correct. When development comes in, you develop all the sidewalk along your frontage. So this subdivision will go to here. Their extents of their property, and they've got that shown in their plans.
Yeah.
Also, Dan, I don't remember if you were here when we first presented, but on 2,500, there's a 8-foot asphalt path on the south side that is going to connect into the city's a big loop. And so we're responsible for putting that in as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's in our plans.
Okay. Good. Thank you. Any other questions? Anybody? We ready to make a motion? Somebody besides me
Yeah.
has to. You don't have to say the whole thing. You can just either make a motion to approve or not approve.
I move that we approve the Smiling Age concept and go forward and send it to the city council.
Do we want to
It's-
add that
with-
condition on
with
with the
conditions that-
condition, with the written agreement for the sewer, the secondary water?
The
With that
secondary water.
condition?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you could add that on.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's development
Preliminary.
plan, not concept.
Okay, preliminary plan then, yeah. So move.
With the conditions. We've got that. Have a second. It's been moved. We need a second.
I'll second it.
Been moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, sounds good.
Me.
Jeff. All right, thank you. Let's go to item number 2. Consideration and possible recommendation of a concept plan for log cabin subdivision.
Okay.
Stuart, Spencer, what's your name? Spencer.
Spencer.
Whatever
Yeah.
it is.
Yep. So we're going to stay right in the same geographic area here. This log cabin subdivision involves 10.67 acres, and it's these 2 parcels here. So this parcel was actually previously included in the Smiling H, was not included by the concept approval, and now it's got an application on its own as a subdivision, along with this parcel to the south. I'll flip over to the concept plan quickly. And then we can talk through the staff kind of recommendations on this one. So essentially the plan is to come in with an access road off of 600 East, and this is where that sidewalk, the extent of the previous subdivision was right here on the north boundary of this one. That sidewalk would continue along the frontage of 600 East, and then from that point on, the city would either have to wait for development or pick it up from there. If we wanted it to come in timely, we'd likely have to pick it up as a project, as a city project. So a road would come in off of 6th. It would come around the corner. There's a phase 1 and 2. So this north section, all is one parcel, would be phase 1. Currently, it's shown as having an access road come through between these 2 houses. That could potentially be finished to be a fire access during phase 1. And then when phase 2 comes in, built out as a road. Another item to discuss that the applicant has brought up as wanting to explore if it'd be a possibility is to have a temporary turnaround type of access, either a temporary cul-de-sac, then put in this entire road and the other road with phase 2. That's something we'll want to get kind of at least have a discussion about with them and figure out what the best option would be. So if I flip through a couple of the code things on this, with the zoning it's at R112, it could have up to 33 lots. They've got 27 shown. So they're under the maximum density that could be had for this. As far as recommendations, there are a couple in there from staff when reviewing this. So one of those, and I'll flip back, I'll mention them, then I'll flip back to the plan. One of those is that the cul-de-sac on the far south be adjusted to just stub to the end of the property line. And the reason for that would be to provide access. There's some land to the south, and we don't want to cut that
Can you
Oh,
land
show
off.
us on the plat?
Yeah.
Yes.
sure.
So I'll flip over there now. So let me get this pulled up. Get it separate so we can see it. So right now it's a cul-de-sac. Staff recommendation would be to remove that cul-de-sac and put that road all the way to the property line. Reason being, there's some property here in lots that are larger than is required. And whether or not they get developed in the near future, we do want to make sure that access is provided. There's not a good, clear way of access anywhere along here. So if this road stubs to there, that would give the ability to come in and have a cul-de-sac a little further down if the property owners there determine that they would like to do that. With an access point as drawn from this 2330, which right now isn't a road, but if that is in concept plan is dedicated as an access, that would give enough distance for that dead end to be within our 750 feet. So it'd be about 500 feet. So that's the one staff recommendation, or one of the staff recommendations on that one. The other one, let me go back over here. There are a couple lots shown in the concept, lots 11 and 12. I spoke with the applicant on this one with Bert Israelson, and they're shown and they were highlighted in red to kind of bring them to our attention. The minimum width is 80. These are shown as 77.9. The reason they did that is they're going to go get a more precise survey done. With the information they have now, those are at 77.9. They don't know for sure when they get a precise survey in if they're still going to be just short of the width. They've stated that if that survey comes in and there's actually enough room, they'll amend those lots to be the right width. If they're not, then there could be a property line adjustment to give a little more space to widen both these out. The alternate would be to do a variance for these lots, but I've expressed kind of from the staff perspective, we don't like to do variances very often. Just we'd rather stick with what the code says or change the code if it doesn't fit. So applicant's willing to work with whatever. If the survey shows there's more feet to widen those, they've also expressed that they're willing to do a small boundary line adjustment to bring those in. There is more width on some of these lots in phase 2, this lot in phase 2, to allow for these ones to be brought up to the right width if needed. So those are the two recommendations from staff, those two conditions for approval by the city council, essentially for a positive recommendation there.
Mhm. Spencer, with there's additional space available in phase 2 to widen those 2 lots, but what about phase 1? Because those 2 lots would be in phase 1.
Yeah, so the phases are broken up by property ownership. So you've got the parcel to the north and the parcel to the south. That phase line is drawn right at the boundary. Essentially, phase 1 is looking to go in as soon as there's approval. They would look to start construction. Phase 2 would likely happen a little bit down the road. So it's not, I mean, it could happen at any time, but 2 to 5 years is kind of a rough idea. It could be a little bit longer than that. So what they would do to include that into phase 1 is they'd redraw the line on their plans and show that that additional width is now in phase 1 to those 2 lots. They would also do just a little boundary line adjustment to these parcels as they exist, so that would match the phase line, if that's what was needed to bring those to the right width. So it could be kind of a 2-step thing.
Okay.
Is that a concern?
Spencer, is this whole area under one concept plan
Yes.
or are we
So
2?
this is under one concept plan. The way the process will work on this is as concept plan, they do the entire subdivision with all the phases. Then with each phase, so say this gets approved in concept, you'd come in at each phase with a development plan. So the
Okay.
development plan would be shown just as phase 1, and that would come back to planning commission just showing phase 1. Then in the future, when phase 2 is time to develop, they bring in a development plan specifically for phase 2. So it'll be 1 part now for concept, 2 parts for future process.
Okay.
Can you, so explain the future right away?
Yeah,
Yes.
that road, I'm curious about
The
that.
present, future.
Right here. So, and maybe Bert, if he wants to step in, if I'm not explaining it right here, he can. But essentially, in order to provide access within our 750-foot
Right.
dead end rule, they have to have a second access.
Right.
Right.
What they wanted to do is have that second access, and it's really needed mostly for this phase 2. So if you take and measure from the road here where their access is and come down, you can hit this. The original plan was to do a cul-de-sac about right at 750 and then call it good. That would leave this land having to come off from here and do another cul-de-sac, at which point you're not going to be able to reach all of the land that's accessible. So they came in kind of in working with the property owners. They reached out, talked to this neighboring property owner who's not necessarily looking to develop as soon, and have this shown in their plans. And what they want to do with this phase 1 is have it be a temporary right of way, or again, the other option is to have a temporary turnaround, then have that go in the future. So rather than do a permanent cul-de-sac that would limit the options for these property owners, they'll come in, leave space, have a temporary access spot or a say road base or finish to fire code standard access, and then that would be fully finished out with the next phase. That's the intent.
But in doing that, that puts us further than 750 feet.
Yes, so it would put us further.
So to be compliant there, then we would have to require that future right of way to be an approved fire access road.
Right, be minimum at least.
Okay,
access for fire.
is that what the intent is? Or is there some kind of variation that's being requested?
Yeah, so there were kind of two options, and again, feel free to step in. One is to have that be exactly like you stated, fire access. The other one would be to do a temporary turnaround. In that case, the temporary turnaround would have to be at 750, wherever that lie. So that would need to probably be somewhere back into the property a little bit as a temporary cul-de-sac. And it would probably change the phase 1, phase 2 lines a little bit. This is the plan that was submitted and applied, and it shows this 55-foot right away finished to an extent to meet fire code. So any change to that, and we'd want to have that noted.
Well, so yeah, what I read is right of way. I don't read fire access road that's the required feet wide, that's going to be maintained through the winter,
Right,
hard packed surface.
and we could make that a condition.
So what I have, as we're on that, are these property owners that are already there?
Yeah.
Are they good with this? Have they been talked to about this idea, concept?
Go ahead.
I'm Gary Anderson. I'm the trustee on the property just there
Is it this?
is where the house is.
The phase 1.
Oh,
Okay.
okay, got
I
it.
represent my sister Vicky, who owns the lot just to the east. And we're both willing to do an existing, to do a new right of way. Let me tell you where, if you look at the plat, right now on the south property, there's a 25-foot right of way that's specifically designated for access for a subdivision. It appears that when this was done back in the early 2000s, that the requirement for the city was a 50-foot right of way. Because otherwise, I'm not sure why the survey and the deed was done at 25 feet on that side. We're willing to give what needs to be done on these other properties. It will either be 10 feet more, because there's already an existing 15-foot right of way. So right now, there's an existing 40-foot right of way on the plat. And we're willing to give whatever, up to the 55. That's what we've talked about. It would work better for us with 50 feet, but if we need to do the 55, we'll do that. And we've discussed having that as the permanent right of way, and we're ready and willing to transfer that property to do the development plan. So yes, that's there. We just are trying to get feedback from Planning Commission in terms of what you're looking for.
So,
Okay.
yeah, I guess my thoughts on that is that to be compliant, there's either a cul-de-sac in there, or it's not just a right of way, that it's a fire access road that meets the requirements.
Yep.
That's what it's-
Yep,
Yeah.
and they have the note here. We can just add a note as a condition that access road, whether it probably won't be fully finished out as a fully fledged 55.
Yeah,
foot
it just
right-of-way
needs to
street,
meet,
needs to meet
Meet
fire
that-
code
Yeah,
for
and if
phase
we-
1, and then can be finished out in phase 2.
And that's the condition.
Our discussion with Spencer was what road base and pit run.
Yeah, I'll have to verify that
You wanna
with the
check into
fire
that?
code and see if it needs to be paved. I do know, like Jeff noted, it
Yeah.
does have to be maintained year round.
Okay.
Also, Craig can speak to that. I know there's a weight limit that it has to exceed. It has to be maintained and clear year round. So it has to be something that can be plowed or whatnot.
Yeah, if we could get some clarification on that, we're willing to do what needs to be done.
I think,
That-
yeah, for me, that just needs to be clear that stating it's a right of way doesn't meet the code.
Okay.
So it
Right.
does need to be, if we're going to use it as a fire access road, then it needs to meet all the requirements of a fire access road.
We'll note that. We can note that more clearly.
And is that the direction that they prefer to go versus the cul-de-sac?
Maybe Bert would be the best to speak to that.
Okay.
So what would be the correct terminology then? Fire access road instead of right away?
Just an access road, yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
just got to be an access
not-
road.
I think temporary is not a good word to have at all.
Yeah,
In there.
add some language. Access road will be constructed to meet fire access requirements. And we can go over the details on that as well. We can sit down and make sure it meets that.
I'd like the word maintained in there too.
Right.
Okay. And maintained year
Yeah.
year
Needs to
round.
be.
Mhm.
To be able to be maintained, yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Bert Israelson, if it's deeded over, if it's a road access, then who maintains? Is that the city?
That's a good question.
It's a good question.
And that's why I'm poking at this
That's,
stuff.
that's why we want to figure this out.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it's dedicated over and it's a public street, then that would be city maintained. We'd want to chat with our guys as well to make sure that it's done in a way that they can maintain it. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, Alan. That makes sense. You're correct. Okay.
You meet a certain specification.
To the microphone, please, Alan.
Especially
To the
Alan.
microphone.
Because he's so soft spoken. We don't want to misinterpret anything you say, Alan.
That's right. We want it
Just
written
everything
down.
you say can and will be held against you. So,
I just won't say anything. No, those are all good questions. Basically, for the secondary access road is what it would eventually become. If that's the route that you choose to go down, it would have to meet that secondary fire access. And so we would talk about that. That would have to hold 75,000 pounds year round. And if you get to that point, obviously it's going to be turned over to the city for maintenance. If you're bringing it to that level and dedicating that to the North Logan, we're not going to leave it in the hands of the developer to say, good luck maintaining that. They're meeting a certain code, they're meeting that aspect. So the city has to come in and maintain it at that point, is my understanding. Also, when we spoke about this, meeting that certain fire access road and making sure that the developer's not wasting money, essentially, is we would just discuss what the future access road would look like when it's permanent.
Yeah.
Meaning paved, built to the 50 or 55 foot. That's a very good point, discussing that access way through there to meet our cross section. And so just putting down a little bit of gravel won't do, but if they put down the pit run and we talk about road base and meeting that cross section, then they haven't wasted any money because that will just apply towards the future roadway that goes in. But that would be a discussion with the developer that we would go through that. But yes, it would need to be a fully access road that the city has to maintain.
That the developer knows they have to build.
They build, we maintain.
Mhm.
We'd love to have you maintain it, don't get me wrong. Have at it. But that's basically how the code works.
Thanks, Alan. So I think that's a big question. And then the lot size on 11 and 12 is something we want
The width.
figured out, written down.
Yep. For clarity, the size is good. It's the width. Just
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
The minimum width.
Yeah. May
Go
I
ahead.
speak?
sure.
And then also on the that
Yes.
cul-de-sac, we will, I'm asking, are we going to go straight to the property line then? And we're willing to do that.
That's what we'd recommend. And that way it keeps options open for neighboring property owners. And what we do is we work with you in the development plan phase to get a hammerhead turnaround or a temporary turnaround slated in between those lots that will work for the time being. And you'll just go straight to the end of the road.
And that would not be done until phase 2 was done, right?
Correct.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Off the end of the cul-de-sac. straight
I'm just trying to find
to
where,
the L equals AD at the bottom. So
oh, okay,
it's just a
can see
line.
that, yeah. Got it. Interesting. Any other questions? Thoughts? Aaron?
A question in that for the city, I guess, is 6th going to be made as a permanent road across there?
6th East is a permanent road. It's on our master plan. Down here, is that the one you were referencing, or are you looking at the 7th that's in the interior? This
No,
would be,
I'm looking at one here to the left.
this one here.
Yeah.
Yes,
I can't see that. Is that 600 East? I can't.
that one's 600 East.
All right,
Yep.
now is that going to be a paved main road through there? Because on the ends of it, it was saying this is a private drive on one of the,
Yeah,
Oh.
so the signs on the end and the gates, they get closed for safe routes to school. Essentially, there's no pedestrian or walking area there. So to provide a safe place for kids to walk and not have cars going down at the same time, because they basically have to walk in the middle of the road. They just have to dodge the potholes. We close it off and they just walk on there. No cars are allowed through. After the places where there's houses, they close the gates. 6th East is on our master plan to be a full city road. It is a road now outside of school times. You can drive through it. It's calling it paved is being kind of generous.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't call it.
And
paved.
that is something we need to get in our, it is on our plans to get built. These projects where it's finishing a portion of it, we may want to bump it up on our priority list so we can kind of match that infrastructure sooner. So we might want to bump our timetables up. And I'll just have to work with Jordan Oldham of Public Works on his timing and budget for the next few years to see where we can bump that ahead of maybe some other projects and get sidewalk and road finished all the way down to 22nd. So
That was going to be one of my questions. Would it include a sidewalk when it goes
yes,
through? Okay.
yes, yep. We'll definitely need to include sidewalk when that goes in. And this is a potential candidate for some grant funding for safe routes to school. We could look into that. I know we have some agreements with some property owners, but we'll try to exhaust every resource we have to try and get this done. And if we can find grants, if we can find other ways to make it happen. And like I said, it's on our plan, so we've known it's coming as well. So we'll try to get that in and that timeline bumped.
Okay.
another question, timeline on this development as soon as possible on all of this, or phase one?
Phase 1, yeah.
As quickly, so that means that road is going to have to be done if that goes in.
Well,
Well, the developer will do their portion. of it.
Understand, but I mean, the city's going to have to lock that up too. So
right.
finish
so
it, we just
from the-
about finish it
from the
all
log
now instead
home
of piecemeal.
To
The-
2500 North would be done by OLO and log cabins development.
Yeah, the road to the south is, it is still, it's a road. So it's still there. We don't have to finish our portion before they're going to be likely to finish their portion before we get it bumped up, just with, I know kind of the number of projects that are on the list and kind of the ones that we can bump. We have some that already have funding. They're going to take priority, but they don't have to wait for us to finish south of their project down to 2200. North of their project will be finished with that other subdivision. And there is an existing road that will work for the time. We'll just want to fix it as soon as we
Yeah.
possibly can.
Because there would be that gap between where that house is from that new access point that wouldn't have sidewalk
Yep.
to start. And so that would be,
There'll be no sidewalk from this
Yeah.
point south to 2200 as existing, which
all the children.
is an issue. It's a big issue.
I just hate to see us do it piecemeal. We do this little bit, then this little bit, then we all come back and do this little bit. I'd like to see that whole thing done so it's safe travel for the kids
Yeah.
going all the way along.
Agreed. I agree. And if we physically could, if we can make it work in budget, we'll try to do that. A lot of times with city timelines and developer timelines, they don't always match up. The city timeline is always 5 to 10 years, and that could be 20 years and it could be 2 years. You never know. But we're going to try to get this done as soon as we
Good.
can. If we could get it done at the same time and just get an agreement and use the same contractors as the developer and do that all at once, that's obviously ideal. We'll do that. I
Right.
don't think that's likely, but if we can, we could go for it.
Okay, any other questions, anybody?
No.
So I think what we're saying is we want the wordage on the road on 2330, whatever that road, no, the access
Yes.
road that's not an access road
No.
there, and the width of the lots taken care of, right? Any
Yes.
any other concerns, anybody?
And the cul-de-sac
The
down
cul-de-sac.
here.
And the
on the
cul-de-sac.
south.
Extension, yeah.
Straight up.
Right. Okay, are we ready to make a motion? Somebody?
I'll make the motion. So I'd make a motion for a positive recommendation of this concept plan with the conditions that the line of phase 1, phase 2, what's currently called the right of way is deemed a permanent access road that meets the minimum fire access standard. And that lots 11 and 12 will meet the minimum width requirements.
Mhm.
And that we follow staff recommendation on the cul-de-sac in phase 2 be a straight road that will allow us to get further into future development. Perfect.
As
I
How's
second
that?
that. I second that.
Heather seconds it. All right, we'll make a,
Did you-
No, I was just gonna say.
okay. Are we,
Yeah, she seconded it.
all right,
We're
all
ready
in
to vote.
favor?
Aye.
All right, passes.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on to item number 3, discussion about legislative updates and sessions from the spring conference.
Okay, so I'll keep this one relatively brief here. As you know, I was out for last meeting at a conference. They had some great sessions, a lot of talk about water, a lot of talk about growth. And everybody there was just as confused at how those work together as you are and I am. And so it's kind of trying to walk that line between the two. I wanted to go through some of the state legislature things, because it's going to lead to us looking at our ordinances here in the coming meetings. And just to give an overview, there were 700 more bills proposed in the state legislature this session. 40 of those related to land use, 20 of those were passed, and 4 of those are kind of key things that we're looking at. The biggest one that we're going to be looking at, and probably I'll introduce at our May workshop, the second meeting in May, we'll have a workshop with the city council. They're coming to our meeting on the Thursday, is our moderate income housing plan. The state decided we have to redo that. And if you remember, when we did that at first and adopted that plan, we selected 3 items from the list. They changed the list of strategies and objectives we have to choose from. And now we have to pick, I think, 5 of them. So we've got to update that plan, and we'll talk over that moderate income housing and things we can do. I think for the most part, we've been doing quite a bit. We have a lot of the things already in code. We've updated our ADU ordinance, which I'll talk about later. We've have mixed use zones. We've had a lot of multifamily development come in recently and is under construction. It's trying to find the strategies to kind of maintain that, not necessarily overhaul the system. It was our plan for last time. So we'll dive into that more in depth in that later meeting. A couple of the other things that have changed with that moderate income housing plan, that is now going to be monitored by the Division of Workforce Services. They'll check in on the cities. I, as a staff member, will have to submit a report on how we're doing to our plan in October. They will check up on us and report on if we're doing good, I guess. I'm not really sure how this is going to work. It's a little confusing because we can make a plan, but we're not the ones that build the units in the end. So I don't know really how they're going to grade us, because it's not all in our hands to have this. There are factors out of our control. So we'll see how that goes.
We live in a free market.
Exactly.
Anyway.
So that's the thing, but we'll do the best we can. We'll meet all those steep requirements. The one thing that we will have to change that we did update our ADU ordinance for internal ADUs, basically has requirements that you have to follow, but you don't need a permit, a conditional use permit anymore. They changed that we have to have internal ADUs be tracked and registered somehow. So we're gonna have to create a new permit licensing something. It can't be a conditional use permit because they said we can't do that, but we have to have something separate so they can know how many internal ADUs there are. So that'll actually make it slightly more difficult to do a basement apartment internal ADU, but again, we'll just follow state code and change our ADU ordinance for the third time in 2 years. So back into that one. The other thing that came up is there needs to be a section added to the general plan about water. So there, a water section in the general plan. We'll need to go through and get that approved. I'll work with Jordan with Public Works and Zach, who's our utilities. That needs to be in by 2025. I'll kind of try to coordinate with them. There is some funding to help prepare that. So we may have some water element of our general plan items coming in for our review. As far as other things that kind of apply to us, design standards technical manual, if you were, I think I gave a brief overview of this at some point. It's basically outlines the details on how things need to be constructed, public infrastructure and whatnot, road grades, cross sections. Any changes to that now require a public hearing. So before that was just a city council move. Now it's going to come in front of the planning commission to have a public hearing as well. So if we make any changes there, and I have been talking with Jordan and our engineer, they do want to go through and just update it a little bit too. So we may have some of that coming in to us. Let's see if there's anything else. We can't prohibit water-wise landscape anymore, which we don't. We encourage water-wise landscape, so that's good for us. The other big one is retail incentives. So incentives to retail businesses from cities were severely limited in that cities can't offer incentives to a big box business to come locate in our city, which is actually really unfortunate for North Logan because they'll just continue to default to Logan. A lot of times smaller cities have to kind of offer a carrot to draw them out a little bit, and we don't have that option anymore. So not anything necessarily related to planning commission, but it is a factor. Yeah, so that's kind of the basic legislative updates. They had a lot of sessions on again, water and growth, and what I'm gathering, I think in a lot of cases is the water system and situation is very dire. Lake Powell's at 25%. They call it Pond Pal. The Kanab city people called it Pond Pal now, which is not great news. But North Logan City is on top of that. City Council last night, they passed different tiered water rates. In looking at the numbers, Jordan presented it. He did a great job. Residential users have done a measurably good job of cutting back on their peak use. The number of people in the top tiers is way lower than it was before the tiered water rates. They're looking at adjusting the tiers to a little bit more strict for institutional and commercial users to make sure they're doing their fair share as well. The city will also be cutting back. So areas that aren't going to be used, say for sports, on the sports fields, cash recreation complex, it's all secondary water, but you'll see things dry up this year if they're not kind of critical for actually playing on. The cemetery, we'll keep it as green as we can, but that one's also, it uses a lot of water. So the city's going to be doing our part as well. And I think we're starting out on 3 days a week for city water system, just to start out with some structure, and we'll go from there. Hopefully it ends up not being as bad as we think, but just something to keep in mind. If anybody's looking for resources, you have your neighbors or whatnot, we have catch cups you can borrow, take, measure your sprinkler system. You can reach out. USU has a program that Jordan and Zach and Alan maybe know a little bit more details on contact. Refer them to that. They can come measure and audit your irrigation system. Things like that are all helpful and all add up. We have wells, we're going out to bid contract right now to get new wells. Those won't be online probably until next December, when we can start using that water at a minimum. They have to come in, drill it. There's a timeline there. There's a specified amount of time before that can be utilized. And we're getting very close on reservoirs and other infrastructure. So we're not at the funding phase for that anymore. We're at the finding the people to build it and get timelines to get it done. So just to address some of the main concerns as far as that goes. So that's a brief overview of the conference. And there is another Utah League of Cities and Town conference as well that we'll be able to return a report on, just to get back to you on after that session. So.
Well, thanks, Spencer.
Yeah,
A lot to think about, people. All right, our next, anything else?
I have a question for Spencer, and that is, those who are on secondary water systems, when are they going to have to go on to metering? And will it be for that system, or will it be individual homeowners metered?
Yeah, I don't know if Alan knows more details on secondary water metering than me. All the new subdivisions, so Smiling H, that other subdivision came in, anything new will be metered, required to be metered. As far as existing users, I don't know if they know an exact date yet or the details. 2025.
Say again, please.
They're gonna retroactively go back to, interesting.
So are they going to do a system or an individual? Do we know? Yeah, a system such as the Montague Park subdivision. Will they do that system, or will they do the individual homeowners in that system? Individual homes, you say? Okay. I'll be
And
done
that will
by
be a
then.
city expense? Or do they put that off on the homeowners? Oh, okay. I don't have secondary water, so it doesn't really, just was curious.
Okay, our next meeting is with the city council.
No, our next meeting is going to be I think it's May 4th. May the 4th. May 5th. Cinco de Mayo.
May 5th.
So if you want to come to city council, you can wear a Star Wars shirt. If you want to come to our meeting, you got to wear something more festive. Cinco de Mayo.
Right. Could we have a pinata or something? It'd be fun.
Yes. And then the second meeting is in May, is when the city council will come and we'll do a joint workshop. If we have anything incredibly pressing as far as an application on that second week of May, we may do an abbreviated short meeting before the workshop, but otherwise we'll just go right into it.
Okay,
And
I'll
that's
be
the
gone the
19th.
second meeting in May, so
I got it.
you got it. Okay,
Got it.
all right. That it?
That's all I've got.
Well, yeah, we should clarify that in spite of what Alan said, Jeff did a really good job of conducting the meeting last time we met, so.
Good job.
That doesn't surprise me.
Good
that Alan
job,
said
Jeff.
something.
Good job.
And Alan was kind to tell me every question I had. That's a great question.
And Spencer,
Oh, he
thank
tells
you.
that to everyone.
Thank you for getting the information out to us sooner.
I do have a
Thank you.
question that is really, that we can be done with this meeting, but I do have a question about when plans come in, I know this probably is not a rule, but can we start to recommend, like Smiling H said, they're gonna do some sort of maybe xeriscaping or something, encouraging less grass? Is that something that? Oh, okay. I thought we were gonna be off the
We
meeting
haven't
now.
had closing prayer yet.
We can,
Oh, okay, well, I can ask it later then. I was just
I
curious.
can go over that with
Yeah,
you
okay, I
after
was
the
curious
meeting.
about that.
And I can go over kind of the details of what we can and can't require in certain circumstances.
Okay, that was an off. Thank you for telling me. I
Perfect.
thought we were off. I was ready to be off.
Not
We,
quite.
we need
Okay, I
to have a
forgot about
motion
that.
to
We have to
adjourn.
actually vote
this
on that.
meeting.
Forgot about that. I
Do we
got
have
really
a-
anxious.
Do we can't believe that we're actually, where's our clock?
A majority might
It-
want to sit
It fell off
talk.
and exploded. So Jordan has ordered another one, and it's gonna go up there. Don't get too excited. It's just the same cheapest one on Amazon that we had there before, but
Well, I
yeah,
thought
we'll
it
have
was
another
down,
clock.
so we
course.
couldn't
As
see
long
what
as
time
hands
it
go
was.
around at the right speed. it will-
Yeah, as long as
As long
it
as it
keeps the right
works.
time, right?
Okay, so we need a motion to adjourn this meeting.
I move we adjourn this meeting.
A
I
sec-
seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, adjourned until May 5th. Thank